Hello, I'm Adrian Boot. I guess I'm a retired photographer.
Lovely. And you photographed all of these photos here?
Most of the photographs you see I've taken over about a 50-year period nearly.
So you knew from a young age that reggae was the background you wanted to photograph?
No, that's not how it worked. I left university and went to teach physics in Jamaica at Titchfield School in Port Antonio. And photography was a hobby. And of course at weekends I'd go out and photograph Jamaica, who wouldn't? So when I came back after spending 2.5-3 years in Jamaica, reggae started to happen. And this was about 1973-74. So I was flavour of the month. I had a lot of the pictures. I'd met Bob Marley and I'd met a lot of the stars in Kingston. And it just kind of took off from there, really.
And would you say the reggae in Jamaica, the influence it had back then, and the influence it had on Britain as well, do they compare?
Back in the day, nobody had a clue, any idea that reggae would mean anything at all. Chris Blackwell, who was a friend who signed Bob Marley to Island Records, at the time everybody thought he was mad. Why are you spending all this money on this guy from Jamaica playing calypso or reggae or whatever it is? Doesn't mean anything. But he did. He invested the money, he made the record, and the rest is history.
And can I ask, what do you think, from your perspective, the influence reggae has had on British culture?
Enormous. Not just in the music, but in the food, fashion, even the language. You can go to an estate in Clapham and find white kids with a Jamaican patois accent. It's funny. So it's penetrated all the way through British culture in a positive way. And part of the reason for this show was to kind of demonstrate the positive contribution that Jamaican culture's had on the UK post Windrush. It's fashionable now to talk about the negative side of Jamaican culture within the UK. This is the positive side, which is 90% of Jamaica's contribution to the UK.
And why was it important for you to be involved in this exhibition and them to use your photography, and why is this exhibition important to you?
Well, I try to not use as much of my photography as you can see, but it just so happens because I've been doing it all these years, back in the day when nobody was doing it at all, meant that I had all of the pictures for this exhibition. Michael Riley and I first put this together 2 years ago, and it was a struggle to find the money to put it together. It's been a long, long, hard road, but we felt it was important. It was important to demonstrate that the power of Jamaican music. It wasn't just a passing phase. It wasn't like some small thing that came and left. It stuck forever.
I've got to ask you, your pictures are beautiful, but I've got to ask you about Bob Marley, because everyone knows him. Do you think of reggae, you think Bob Marley, he's mainstream. How was your interaction with him? How was your experience when you met him, when you took this picture, for example? What was that day like?
Well, that was shot at the studio, Hope Road. You got to remember, back in those days, nobody thought Bob Marley would be a superstar. That was beyond everybody's wildest dream. It wasn't until much later that Bob Marley was recognised as a star. Back in the day, he was a minor Jamaican artist. He had a sense of humour. When I first met him, he spoke with a sort of a Miami drawl, an American accent, because he spent a lot of time in America. He developed the patois thing much later. As Rastafari came in, he adopted that. And of course it was a form of identity. It was a fashion. But he did have a sense of humour. And I'd crack jokes and he'd crack jokes. But it wasn't... when he talked to journalists, he would lay on a thick patois accent that would kind of intimidate the journalists. But he was perfectly capable of speaking the Queen's English if he wanted to.
And do you still do photography now?
Less so. Now everybody's got one of these, an iPhone. So I'm redundant.
And one last question. do you think that the impact that reggae had on British culture back then, do you still think that moving forward, the reggae now is going to have that same of an impact for British culture in the future?
Well, the effect it had back then is permanent. It's still with us today. And okay, reggae itself might not survive, but the throwbacks, grime, everything else that comes out of that will survive and carry on. You have to admit, Jamaican culture, for one full stop of a country on the world map, has had an enormous effect. I travel around the world. I go to Russia, I go to West Africa, Jamaica. Everybody knows about Jamaica. Everybody knows about Jamaican music and reggae. And if you look at a world map, it's less than the size of a full stop.
Lovely. Thank you so much.